bill came for first reading back in November 2020, but it was not moved for second and third reading until today. Why today? Because when a supplementary bill is presented on a Tuesday, MPs and the leader opposition cannot ask PQs and PNQs. So I find that very regrettable because we've just received our WAP and we have so many issues to raise in this House. Now, turning to the bill itself, we don't have any issues with paying the electoral commissioner for the expenses for the village council elections. With respect to the government printing, we need some explanation for the price doubling from 166 million to an additional 190 million rupees. That's a lot of money for a government printing office. With respect to the special allowance payable to police service and to the Ministry of Health and Wellness, they both relate to payment of allowance for frontliners. Again, we don't have any issue with paying a special allowance to police and health workers who had put their lives and those of their close ones at risk by being in the front line. But like we have said previously, we feel that this special allowance ought to have also been advanced to other frontliners, not just police officers and healthcare workers. I'm thinking about refuse collectors, firemen, those who work in public utilities and other essential services who exposed their lives and did not get any recognition from the state. Now the country is experiencing a second wave of COVID pandemic. The question is whether the state will pay an additional allowance to our frontliners. And if so, which category of people would be eligible for that allowance? Next, I would like to talk about the 400 million additional fund being provided for compulsory acquisition. This is in addition to the 500 million already voted. Mr. Speaker, so we keep on voting money. The government keeps on acquiring land. But is the government going ahead with the projects? Are the projects implemented? The Director of the National Audit, year in, year out, in his report is very critical of the amount of land that is compulsory acquired and not utilized. For example, last year, the Director of Audit observed that several arpents of land were vested in various ministries and remained undeveloped for a period ranging from 5 to 11 years. And 9 ministries vested with 110 arpents of land did not provide any information about availability of funds or time frame to implement 31 projects. So much resources wasted, so much money wasted. Land are acquired, but projects are not implemented. The Director of Audit, Mr. Speaker, sir, also pointed out that every year we pay millions of rupees in interest to persons whose land have been compulsorily acquired. For example, for the year 2019-2020, we have paid over 100 million rupees, because of administrative delays. The state law register software solutions, which is supposed to ensure better monitoring and efficiency in acquisition process, is still not operational. So today, again, Mr. Speaker, sir, we are being asked to vote a huge sum of money for compulsory acquisition, almost ₹500 million, 80% more than was originally budgeted, and there is absolutely no guarantee that the project will be implemented. There's absolutely no guarantee that we will not end up having to pay hundreds of millions of rupees in interest to owners whose land are being compulsorily acquired. Turning to item 10.2, Social Security and National Solidarity. An amount of 375 million rupees is being appropriated. I would be failing in my duty, Mr. Speaker, sir, at the time when we are called upon to vote this additional amount of money for all pensioners, if I did not convey to the House the greatest disappointment of our pensioners, who for the first time have not received any compensation this year for the increase in cost of living. Workers in the private and public sector obtain a salary compensation of 375 rupees, but not pensioners, not widows, not orphans. Yet the Honourable Minister of Finance acknowledged that the inflation rate will be 2.7%. In fact, because of the depreciation of the rupee by more than 10%, the prices of medicine and other imported goods used by pensioners have increased by double-digit figures. And how reckless, Mr. Speaker, sir, on the part of the Honourable Minister of Finance to state that government does not have the funds to compensate pensioners for their loss of purchasing power because government had to buy vaccines. Where are the vaccines? No compensation for pensioners, no vaccine for pensioners. It is not too late, Mr. Speaker, sir. I hope that in the coming budget, the Minister of Finance will rectify this injustice, rectifier le tir, and compensate our pensioners for the loss in purchasing power. Now let me turn to the big chunk of this budget, additional budget. Centrally managed expenses of government, a staggering 15 billion rupees, almost more than 10% of the budget we voted. Let's take it in turn. 3 billion rupees for the implementation of measures announced in the Economic Recovery Program. I've tried to look for this Economic Recovery Program on the internet, but I couldn't find anywhere, even on the website of the Ministry of Finance, I couldn't see what this Economic Recovery Program was about, save and except for Cabinet decision on 23rd of October 2020, which provided that Cabinet has agreed to the implementation of an economic recovery program, which comprises a package of measures aimed at boosting GDP growth, protecting jobs and creating new ones, reducing dependence on imports and improving the well-being of the population. We don't have more details about what is this package of measures. We just heard the Honourable Minister of Finance highlighting what is included in that economic recovery program. But we're talking about 3 billion rupees. That's a huge sum of money. And why have an economic recovery program in October 2020, only 3 months after voting the budget? And the budget referred to economic recovery plan. Everywhere in the budget there is mention of economic recovery plan, and yet after 3 months the Minister of Finance come back and spend 3 billion rupees for a new economic recovery program. So is it because the Honourable Minister of Finance realized that his budget was not good enough to stimulate growth and prevent unemployment? Or is it just a new scheme, Mr. Speaker, sir, to help copains, copines, air hostess, jewelers, and cronies who do not have de l'huile dans les oreilles to benefit from these 3 billion rupees of extra funds? How much of these 3 billion rupees has been earmarked for the national-wide cleaning campaign? How much has been earmarked for the nationwide cleaning campaign? Who will carry out this nationwide cleaning campaign? Has tender been launched? Who was the successful bidder? I couldn't find anywhere any bid calling for attention of professional cleaners from the private sector to compete to get value for money. No. Instead, in an article which appeared in Defi Media on the 20th of January 2021, we found out that a company by the name of Mori Facilities Management Company Limited, an affiliate, a subsidiary of Lenscoat, was recruiting 2,000 people as general cleaners with a salary of 10,200 rupees per month for a period between 3 months to 6 months for the purpose of doing this cleaning. 2,000 people in all opacity by Mauritius Facilities Management Co. Limited? And what will happen to these people after 3 months, after 6 months? Why? Is there a way for them not to be registered as unemployed so that you can boast that you have managed to preserve jobs? That reminds me of the famous 4 jours à Paris, Mr. Speaker, sir. Then we find out that funds are supposed to be used for training. According to the HRDC website, the National Training and Reskilling Scheme is targeting some 9,000 unemployed persons. Now, how many of these 9,000 unemployed persons have been trained so far? And which training institution has provided those training? How much money has been paid to these training institutions so far? So much opacity, Mr. Speaker, sir, around these 3 billion rupees earmarked for economic recovery program. Mr. Speaker, sir, this takes me to the 11.9 billion rupees for the National Property Fund and National Insurance Company. I have kept the worst for last. 11.9 billion of public funds will be injected in National Property Fund and National Insurance Company. What's a high? 11.9 billion has already been injected in NPFL and NIC. Honourable members will recall that NPFL was set up in May 2015 to take over assets of BAI to repay super cashback gold policyholders and investors in Brahma Asset Management Limited. NIC was set up to take over the insurance business of BAI. All along, there has been many PQs, many PNQs in this House about BAI, about NPFL, about NIC, about super cashback gold policyholders and Brahma Asset Management investors. All along, government insisted that no public funds will be used to repay the victim of BAI. Answering to a PQ on 28th of March 2017, the then Minister of Financial Services, Honourable C. Sankar, stated, and I quote, "However, as a responsible government, and as clearly stated by my predecessor to the PNQ dated 3 May 2016, and I quote, we will not take public funds." This was said in this House. We will not take public funds. A few months later, on 18th of June 2017, at a press conference, Honourable Etienne Sinatambu, sitting next to Honourable Harry Ram, who is not here, stated, and I quote, "Une solution a été trouvée pour les souscripteurs au plan Super Cashback Gold et ce n'est pas l'argent des contribuables qui sera utilisé. Ce n'est pas l'argent des contribuables qui sera utilisé." All along, this government has been telling the population not 1 cent of the population will be used to pay for the victim of the BAI. And we know that today, if we are having to ratify 11.9 billion of taxpayer, 11.9 billion of expenditure, it is because the government mishandled the whole BAI matter. Everybody knows that the assets of BAI were sold off for peanuts, bradé, be it Iframark, Coates, Apollo Hospital, Brahma Kenya, and Britam Kenya. All these were disposed at a fraction of their value. And I'm not going to go on and on about Omega R. But today, Mr. Speaker, sir, we pay pas à la caisse. 11.9 billion rupees. But it's not 11.9 billion rupees, Mr. Speaker, sir, is it? The Honourable Minister of Finance can tell us. It's not 11.9 billion rupees that we will have to pay. No. We have to add to that 11.9 billion rupees 3.5 billion rupees advanced by the Bank of Mauritius in June 2016. And we have to add 6 billion rupees already injected by government in Mobank, which is a merger between Brahma Bank and NPCB. So if we take 11.9 billion plus 3.5 of Bank of Mauritius plus 6 billion of Mobank, that gives us 21.5 billion rupees. mismanagement of BAI has cost us taxpayers 21.5 billion rupees so far. So far, that's more than the cost of Metro Express. How many houses, how many hospitals, how many drains, how many roads could be built by this 21.5 billion rupees? So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I hope at least the Minister of Finance, this government, the Prime Minister will have the decency now to apologize to the population for taking so much money to clear their mess. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, sir, before coming to the bill itself, allow me to reply to some of the remarks of Honorable Utim. On the issue concerning pension, I would like to highlight that since 2014, we have increased the basic retirement pension significantly. We have not disappointed our elders. On the contrary, we have provided them with the means to lead a better life. No government before has even thought of increasing the pension, and today, despite harsh economic challenges due to COVID-19 pandemic, we have maintained the basic retirement pension at 9,000 rupees. At no cost, we have decided to decrease the pension. And Honorable Utim spoke of injustice. Is it an injustice when since 2014 we have kept on increasing the basic pensions? As for the vaccination, I would like to enlighten Honorable Utim that my ministry is currently conducting our anti-flu vaccination. We have ordered 150,000 vaccines instead of 75,000 as compared to previous years. Does this not show our concern for our elderly? I leave it to the public to appreciate. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is an honor for me to address this Assembly in respect of the Supplementary Appropriation 2020-2021 bill. As the House may be aware, my ministry has one of the largest budgets of all ministries. From the time we took office in 2014 to date, the budget of my ministry has, I must say, undergone massive increases from 13.9 billion in 2014 to 36.7 billion today. An increase of 163%, around, I must say, around 94% of our budget is allocated for the payment of different pension and social aid. Mr. Speaker, our government has always been deeply concerned to providing greater financial security to our elderly, persons with disabilities, widows, orphans, and other vulnerable persons. Protecting the most vulnerable remains at the core of our response. We, on this side of the House, we firmly believe that everyone should be able to meet their basic needs. This is why we had made a commitment during our electoral campaign of 2014 and of 2019 to increase the basic pensions. And, Mr. Speaker, we have lived up to our promises. Now, coming to some details on pensions, the basic retirement pension was increased from 3,623 prior to December 2014 to 5,000 in December 2014, and then gradually to 9,000 in December 2019, an increase of 148%. All other basic pensions have known a similar increase. At this point, Mr. Speaker, it is pertinent for me to mention that prior to December 2014, the basic widow's pension and the basic invalidity pension were less than the basic retirement pension. Do you know what was the amount of the basic retirement pension and the widow's pension at that time, Mr. Speaker, sir? It was 3,267 only prior to December 2014. Our government took the laudable initiative to align these two basic pensions with the basic retirement pension. As such, the basic widow's pension and the basic invalidity pension now stand at 9,000 rupees. Mr. Speaker, our government has always shown strong political will to ensure our elderly and other vulnerable groups are well cared for. Another example of our government good faith is that in spite of the current difficult situation due to COVID-19 pandemic, I reiterate, we have maintained the basic retirement pension, the invalidity pension, the widow's pension at 9,000 rupees. Today, the House is being asked to vote an additional amount of 375 million rupees for the Ministry of Social Security and National Solidarity. This additional provision is required largely for the payment of basic retirement pension due to a higher number of beneficiaries. It is good, I mention also, that as the case worldwide, Mauritius is also experiencing an aging population. According to the World Health Organization, the general trend is towards living longer, and the pace of population aging around the world is increasing dramatically. Between year 2015 and 2050, the proportion of the world's population over 60 years will nearly double from 12% to 22%. According to Statistics Mauritius, the population aged 60 in year 1970 represented 5.9% of the whole Mauritian population compared to 17.4% in 2019. The number of beneficiaries of basic retirement pension in Mauritius and Rodrigue has therefore significantly increased over the years. Let me take the past year as an example. The number of beneficiaries of basic retirement pension increased from around 227,000 in July 2020 to around 240,000 in March 2021. So this figure represents a rise of some 13,000 beneficiaries in only 1 year. As such, the increase in the number of beneficiaries coupled with the increase in the rate of basic pension has caused the budget of my ministry to swell up. This explains why additional financial resources need to be allocated to my ministry. But, Mr. Speaker, we are doing this for a very good cause. This fund, I must say, is being used to provide a decent living to our elderly. It is very important for us to enable our seniors to age actively, comfortably, and safely. They help shape the Mauritius we know and love today, and therefore supporting seniors is essential, is important. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, since 2014, our government has shown its determination to help the underprivileged. The continuous increase in basic pensions since 2014 is no doubt proof of our Prime Minister's consideration for the most vulnerable segment of our society. Our efforts have made, I'm sure, a real difference in the life of so many families. To conclude, Mr. Speaker, let me reassure the House that all funds allocated to my ministry are judiciously used in the best interest of the most vulnerable. Our government is fully committed to continue supporting our elders and vulnerable groups. We remain people-focused, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I propose to deal with only 2 items in the estimates. In particular, the 3 billion in relation to the economic recovery program, and also the 11.9 billion in relation to the National Property Fund Limited. Let me start with the second one, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, we are being asked to vote 11.9 billion of taxpayers' money. It is good that we refresh our memory sometimes, Mr. Speaker, sir. We have all witnessed the ordeal, the traumatisme that the super cash backgoal policy holders and the Brahma Assets Management debenture holders have gone through over the years following the reckless and ill-advised move to dismantle the BAI Group. Not to forget the overnight suspension of the license of the Brahma Bank. The government at the time, Mr. Speaker, sir, was determined to nationalize the BAI Group. And we, from the opposition, we warned the government que le réveil sera brutal and it will cost the government coffers huge amount of taxpayers' money. Today, Mr. Speaker, sir, this supplementary appropriation bill before the House proves that we were right and they were wrong all the way. The government, at the time,
don't do the same thing Honorable Jival did. Moving from.
May I proceed, Mr. Speaker, sir? Yes.
If you allow me, Mr. Speaker, you stopped him.
Yeah, because you're my friend. Because you're my best friend, I allowed you. Continue.
May I proceed? Thank you. At a time when the financial situation of the country is extremely difficult, with growth rate well below than what was expected, and with a soaring public debt, in a situation where we had to take extreme measures to going to the extent of digging into the reserves of the BOM to cover for budgetary deficit. At a time when the population is being asked to make sacrifices, we are being asked to vote 11.9 billion of taxpayers' money to be injected in a government-owned company which we knew right from the start of its creation that it would go burst, Mr. Speaker, sir. We have been misled. We have been misled all the way by government. Mr. Speaker, sir, on the 8th of September 2015, the then minister responsible for this portfolio, as representative of the government, made a statement in this very House. And it is astonishing, Mr. Speaker, sir, how the government at that time misled the people. I will quote from this statement, the statement that was made before this August Assembly. And I quote, Madam Speaker, it's good that I bring this to your attention, Mr. Speaker, sir, because you were not here. At the time you had Madam the Speaker. And this is what the Honourable Minister said. Madam Speaker, government has undertaken to repay a massive amount of 19.2 billion regarding super cash back goal and 3.08 billion regarding investors of Brahma Assets Management Limited. In total, this amount of 22.3 billion indeed a huge commitment taken to alleviate the suffering of these people. To date, 6 billion had already been repaid to super cashback gold policyholders and Brahma assets investors. These repayments have been made from the realization of 2.5 billion worth of liquid assets by the special administrators and a line of credit of 3.5 billion which has been granted for a period of 1 year from the BOM on the back of shares held in Britam, Kenya, which has not yet been realized. I'll come to Britam, Kenya later on, Mr. Speaker, sir. The total amount of 16.3 billion, which remains to be paid to super cashback gold policyholders and Burma asset investors, will be effected as of the 30th of June 2016 through zero coupon debentures redeemable in 5 equal installments of 3.26 billion ending on 30th of June 2020. And this is the most important part of his speech, Mr. Speaker, sir. This is how, at that time, back in 2015, we were told how that amount, the 16.3 billion, were going to be financed. And I quote, Mr. Speaker, sir. This is what the minister said. Madam Speaker, the current special administrators and BDO have identified a possible total amount of 13.8 billion, which amount is recoverable over the next 4 years for the payment of debentures from the sale of the National Insurance Company Limited, both life and general, immovable properties, including Brahma Property Fund, land and buildings of Apollo Bramwell Hospital, 17 apartments and 17 parking lots of the Diplomat Garden properties, recovery of specific assets at Pai, Plaine Lausanne, Phoenix Les Halles, and Montebello, amongst others. This will contribute 13.8 billion towards repayment of the debentures, which will then leave a net shortfall of 2.5 billion. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, back at that time, we were told and promised in this very august assembly by government that no amount of public funds shall be used to reimburse the debt of the NPFL. We were told and promised that the BAI group had sufficient assets to cover for its financial obligations. The truth today, Mr. Speaker, sir, is that there has been a vente à l'encan of the assets of the BAI group. Coach Mahmoud sold at 400 million rupees. Apollo Bramwell sold at 700 million rupees. Even the petits copains got involved. 43 Berlin of Iframak sold to Bisun Mangrou. 43 Berlin sold to Bisun Mangrou at 6.3 billion. Britam, this is what we were told. Estimates. This is what we were told. This is where the money was supposed to come from. Britam, Kenya, sold at half the price, 2.4 milliards, when initially MMI Holdings was offering 4.3 milliards. By the way, we are still awaiting, Mr. the Speaker, sir, of the report from the Commission of Inquiry, which dates back to 2017. The Commission of Inquiry was set up in 2017. 4 years down the line, we are still waiting for the report of the Commission of Inquiry. So, Mr. the Speaker, sir, as I've said, there has been a vente à l'encan of the assets of the BAI group, and the NPFL had to borrow from, as stated by the Minister of Finance, from BOM and SBM, loans that were backed by guarantee from government. And I must say that there has been a complete opacity. A complete opacity. A complete opacity by government on this issue. If it was not for the audit report for the year 2017 and 2018, we would not have been aware that the NPFL had taken a loan of 3.5 billion from BOM plus interest amounting to 0.9 billions, which have to be paid in one bullet repayment of 4.4 billions in June 2022. NPFL has also taken a loan of 6.4 billions from SBM in September 2017, and we have no idea when this loan has to be repaid back. Yes. So this is why now we're being asked to vote an amount of 11.9 billions for repayment of these loans. For 11.9 billions of taxpayers' money, Mr. the Speaker, sir. Now, to come to the issue of opacity, Mr. the Speaker, sir, the NPFL is a wholly owned government company. And under the Companies Act, as any other private company, it has an obligation to file its financial statement. Would you believe this, Mr. the Speaker, sir? This government wants us to inject 11.9 billions of taxpayers' money in a company, and yet this company has not filed its audited account since its creation in 2015. So this government, which has the responsibility of managing public funds, is investing 11.9 billion of taxpayers' money in complete opacity. There is no transparency at all, Mr. the Speaker, sir. And there cannot be public scrutiny in the absence of transparency. On so many occasions, Mr. the Speaker, sir, in this House, PQs have been asked on the disclosure of the accounts of the NPFL. And the last one dates back to the 11th of August 2020, a PQ by Honorable Utim. And the Honorable Minister responsible for this portfolio, Honorable Siratan, this was his answer. He said, Mr. Speaker, sir, in fact, I did reply earlier on with regard to the late filing of the accounts. The ex-BAI group was a very complex structure, and assets that were transferred had to be re-evaluated, and I am informed by the auditors that this exercise is nearly completed. This was said back in August last year, and the minister said that the exercise was nearly completed, and it did take some time, but it is almost completed. That's what I have been informed, and the accounts should be in a position to be finalized or for filing eventually. And we are still waiting. I don't know. So maybe the minister will enlighten us on this when it has been filed. Yes. With regards to the National Insurance Company Limited, let me come to the National Insurance Company Limited, Mr. the Speaker, sir. We are being asked to vote 4 billion to be injected in the restructuring that has been injected in the restructuring of the National Insurance Company Limited. Again, on this issue, we have been misled. This is what we were told about the NIC back in September 2015, before in this very assembly. And I go back to the statement made by the then minister at that time. And I quote, Madam Speaker, I am also informed that several parties have expressed interest to participate in the equity of the National Insurance Company Limited, including 2 local insurance companies, a major UK-based insurance company, and a leading local bank, which is expanding in banking insurance as a platform to its future investments in Africa. I am further informed that the interested parties have identified equity participation in the NIC. And he even went on to mention the reasons why those investors would be interested. I won't go into the reasons. And then he said that, Madam Speaker, government intention, look at this, government intention has always been to safeguard the interests and alleviate the sufferings of the distressed policyholders and investors, but not to run this insurance company in the long run. We are 6 years down the line, Mr. the Speaker, sir. We are still running the company with taxpayers' money. And today, we are being asked to vote 4 billion of taxpayers' money for the restructuring of that company. This is how we have been misled by this government, Mr. the Speaker, sir. And he went on, and I quote, Madam Speaker, I am informed that there are already 2 firm offers which have been received by NIC Limited for participation in its equity. The first offer is for around 33% equity, and the second offer is for an initial minority stake of 20% with an option to subsequently increase to a majority shareholdings, etc., etc. They were selling dreams, Mr. the Speaker. They were selling dreams. Today, we are having to inject 4 billion of taxpayers' money for the restructuring of the NIC. And I expect the Minister to give us some more details about the restructuring exercise that has been done at the NIC. Again, to come to the issue of opacity, I don't know if this company also has filed its audited account, but it's been quite for long. PQs have been asked, and I don't know whether they have this company has filed its account as well. Now, I wonder if a proper actuarial evaluation of the policies in the NIC has been conducted to ensure the solvency of the company. Now, therefore, Mr. the Speaker, sir, if you include the 5.6 billion equity participation in Bobank Holdings, 1.6 billion in 2015, 3 billion loan from SBM guaranteed by government, 2 billion in 2019, therefore, the cost of dismantling the BAI group has cost us more than 17.5 billion of taxpayers' money. Therefore, Mr. the Speaker, sir, to conclude on this item, we are being asked to vote 11.9 billion of public funds to be invested in a company without any valuation exercise. I'm being told that now the accounts have been audited and without even ensuring if the assets reflect a fair value. Now, let me conclude on this item by referring to what the Director of Audit said in its latest report about investments by government in certain companies and the fair value of those shares. This is what the Director of Audit said. He said, investments, this is the observation made by the Director of Audit, investments for a total cost of 6.9 billion rupees were disclosed at zero fair value as at 30th of June 2020 in respect of equity participation in companies which showed negative net assets. And today, we are investing 11.9 billion of taxpayers' money in a company we all know is money which is gone for good. That is what we call throwing good money after bad, Mr. the Speaker, sir. Mr. the Speaker, sir, let me go on the second item very briefly with regards to the 3 billion in relation to the economic recovery program. I know that there was a cabinet decision of the 23rd of October 2020 with regards to the cabinet agreed to the implementation of an economic recovery program which comprises a package of measures aimed at boosting the GDP growth, protecting jobs and creating new ones, reducing dependence on imports and improving the well-being of the population. As I stated earlier on, Mr. the Speaker, sir, we are going through tough times. According to Statistics Mauritius, the GDP for 2020 was negative 14.7%, the unemployment rate 10.4%. Moody's has recently raised the alarms with regards to our debt sustainability and downgraded us. As at December last year, our public debt reached 361.9 billion, 84.5% of GDP. In these difficult times, Mr. the Speaker, sir, we should put money where our mouth is. I expect the Minister to give us more details on the measures that have been taken by the different agencies, Landscope Mauritius, through the Mori Facilities Management Limited, the HRDC, and the EDB with regards to those who have benefited from the schemes under the EDB. So, Mr. Speaker, this is what I had to say about those two items. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I move for the adjournment of the debates.
The question is the debate be now adjourned. Those in favor say aye, those against say no. Aye. The ayes have it. Honourable Prime Minister.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, sir, first of all, let me say that I wish to tender my apologies for the delay in addressing the House for the summing up due to unforeseen circumstances. Let me thank all the members who have intervened during the debate. The bill was prepared in consultation with the Ministry of Finance, Economic Planning and Development, the Registrar of Companies, and the Attorney General's Office, and has as main objective the inclusion of foundations within the ambit of the Act, as already stated. There is consensus on the inclusion of foundations controlled by non-citizens within the ambit of the Act. Mr. Speaker, sir, as our legislation stands today, foundations may be used by non-citizens as vehicles to become legal owners of property in Mauritius. And as foundations have not been included within the purview of the Act, there is a real risk that these entities be used by non-citizens to acquire prime land in Mauritius. The urgency is that some people are using the vehicle of a foundation to circumvent the law, hence the urgency to plug the loophole. Mr. Speaker, sir, to reply to the Honourable Leader of the Opposition on the urgency of the bill, I wish to point out that where a bill is considered urgent and has to be brought to the National Assembly soon after its approval by Cabinet, the Prime Minister issues a certificate of urgency under Standing Order 65 of the Standing Orders and Rules of the National Assembly. And a bill which is accompanied by a certificate of urgency can therefore be taken for the first, second and third readings irrespective of time limits required under normal circumstances. Moreover, in this case, as I said, there is information that certain persons may be using foundations to circumvent the law. Regarding the proposal to require a non-citizen to seek authorization under the Act prior to the disposal of property, I am of the view that this was an amendment which was long overdue. An in-depth due diligence exercise is conducted both by my office and the Economic Development Board whenever prior authorization is sought by a non-citizen to purchase property in Mauritius. This exercise is carried out with a view to ensuring that the correct procedures are followed with regard to the transactions and to ascertain that the sources of funds are in accordance with the Financial Intelligence and Anti-Money Laundering Act. Mr. Speaker, sir, I have listened with great attention to various interventions on the other side of the House. I must also at the outset dispel the misapprehension that the purpose of the proposed amendments is to control the price of property and to whom it is being transferred to. The proposed amendments are meant to have a greater measure of oversight on disposal of property by a non-citizen. Mention has been made of scrutiny by international organizations such as FATF and VIDEM. This House is aware that value of immovable property held or owned by non-citizens runs into several millions of rupees. It is only legitimate, for the sake of accountability and transparency, to know who is at the receiving end of a property worth several millions of rupees, so that institutions are kept on notice of any transaction that remotely hints at unexplained wealth, if not money laundering. I have also heard it said that the amendment has omitted the word dispose of from the various other subparagraphs of section 3(c) apart from subparagraph 1. Let me reply to that the amendments to the other subparagraphs of section 3(c), except subparagraph I, are wholly unnecessary to the extent that the requirement for a non-citizen to require authorization to dispose of property as defined by the Act is already captured in the amendments that are made to section 3(1) of the Act. The amendments, in fact, now require every non-citizen disposing of property, including property under schemes overseen by EDB, to seek authorization under the Act. However, it is to be noted that such disposals of property are the exception rather than the norm. Finally, Honorable Utim has referred to elaborate provisions under Section 7(2) and 22 of the Trusts Act, preventing circumvention of the Non-Citizens Property Restriction Act that do not find their equivalents in the Foundations Act, even with the new amendments. The Honorable Attorney General has already addressed this issue, but in addition, let me reassure the House that the current amendments not only target foundations that have as beneficial owner or ultimate beneficial owner a person who is not a citizen of Mauritius, but also strengthen the definitions of acquire, hold, or purchase to include a distribution of property to a beneficiary of a foundation. Mr. Speaker, sir, at present, there is no requirement to seek authorization under the Act when a non-citizen disposes of the same property he has purchased. Thus, the non-citizen can dispose of the property as he wishes, and it is imperative, again, that this loophole be plugged. Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to point out that it would appear on the face of the Act that the Minister has wide discretionary powers. The practice, however, is that under my Prime Ministership, I have ensured that a proper process is set out from the time of application until the issue of the authorization by me. Mr. Speaker, sir, there is a dedicated team at my office that carefully goes through the applications and subsequently seeks the views of the Attorney General's office to ensure that the applications are in order and fall within the strict confines of applicable legislation. It is then, and only then, after being satisfied that the applications comply with all the legal requirements, that approval is granted. It is ensured that there is no undue delay in processing applications, so that the issue of hampering disposal of property does not arise. Anyway, as far as I'm concerned, at the ultimate stage of approval, files generally do not remain with me for more than 24 hours, unless there are genuine queries about the application. Mr. Speaker, sir, to conclude, I would like to refer to the criticism made by the Honorable Leader of the Opposition, by the suggestion that Mauritius is slipping into autocratization. Let me dispel this perception by referring to the Democratic Index compiled by the Economic Intelligence Unit. In fact, in 2011, when the Honorable Leader of the Opposition was the Vice Prime Minister, Mauritius was ranked 24th. For the year 2020, the Democratic Index has ranked Mauritius 20th. And we are classified among the few countries as being a full democracy's regime. And I think that says it all. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Commend the bill. Prime Minister, you commend the bill? Yes. Seconded? Seconded. The question is that the non-citizens' property rights. This is not the bill. Yeah, that's it. The question that the non-citizens' property rights bill number 6 of 2021 be read a second time. Those in favour say aye, those against say no. Aye. The ayes have it.
Public Day Committee stage. Clause 1, short title. Clause 2, interpretation. Clause 3, Section 2 of Principal Act amended. Clause 4, Section 3 of Principal Act amended. Clause 5, Section 5 of Principal Act amended. Clause 6, Section 6 of Principal Act amended. Clause 7, consequential amendment.
The question is that clauses 1 to 7 send part of the bill. Those in favour say aye, those against say no. Aye. The ayes have it.
Title and enacting clause.
The question is that the title and enacting clause send part of the bill. Those in favour say aye, those against no. Aye. The ayes have it. The question is that I do report to the House of the Non-Citizens Property Restriction Amendment Bill number 6, 2021, as part of committee stage without amendment. Those in favour say aye, those against say no. Aye. The ayes have it. Honourable members, please be seated. Honourable members have to report to the House of the Non-Citizens Property Restriction Amendment Bill number 6, 2021, as per the committee stage without amendment.
Public Bill, third reading.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I move that the Non-Citizens Property Restriction Amendment Bill number 6 of 2021 be read a third time and passed.
Seconded? Seconded. The question is that the Non-Citizens Property Restriction Amendment Bill number 6 of 2021 be read the third time and passed. Those in favour say aye, those against say no. Aye. The ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, sir, may I move for adjournment of the House to Tuesday, the 4th of May at 11:30 a.m.
The House stands adjourned. Adjournment matter. I can see everybody interested. So, let's set the principle. Short laying of foundation, raising of the issues so that everybody gets a chance. Honorable Kirin.
Oui, merci, Monsieur le Président. Ma requête cet après-midi s'adresse au ministre des Sports, mais aussi à l'honorable Premier ministre. De prime abord, je dois dire qu'enfin l'irraisonnable n'est plus que rendez-vous et par conséquent, le bon sens a prévalu avec la décision prise par le gouvernement en faveur de celles et ceux qui pratiquent un sport individuel en extérieur. Et comme annoncé, à partir de ce 1er mai 2021, ils seront désormais autorisés à s'adonner à leur jogging, à la marche à pied ou à faire du vélo, entre autres. Ce qui va sans doute jouer positivement sur la santé mentale de bon nombre de Mauriciens. Si cette décision, Monsieur le Président, va dans la bonne direction, par contre, c'est consternant que malgré cette démarche, l'ensemble des sportifs mauriciens et mauriciennes, surtout ceux qui pratiquent un sport de haut niveau ou de niveau national ou régional, sont tout simplement ignorés. Et avec votre permission, très rapidement, Monsieur le Président, je vais citer un sportif de haut niveau, olympien de son état et multiple gagnant du Tour de Maurice de cycliste, notamment...
Other members are waiting for the turn.
Yes.
Try to be democratic.
Oui, je vais vite, Monsieur le Président. Yannick Lincoln, à propos des interdictions et les incertitudes qui pèsent sur les sportifs en général. Je le cite, « Même en ayant un degré de résilience considérable en tant qu'athlète d'expérience, je dois avouer que l'incertitude persistante et usante. » Monsieur le Président, pour terminer, avec votre permission, je lance donc un appel au ministre des Sports afin qu'il trouve les moyens nécessaires et adéquats afin que nos sportifs aient l'espace intérieur ou extérieur pour qu'ils puissent s'entraîner, bien sûr tout en respectant les gestes barrières et les consignes sanitaires.
Honourable members, before the Minister replies, try to cooperate. It is in your own interest that I'm doing it. Honourable Minister.
Monsieur le Président, je dois dire que je n'ai pas compris du tout ce que l'honorable membre voulait dire. Le sport pour le grand public, ça c'est clair, à partir du 1er mai, si tout se passe bien, bien sûr, le Premier ministre l'a annoncé, tout le monde pourra aller faire son jogging. En ce qui s'agit des sportifs de haut niveau, ils ont leur fédération, ils n'ont qu'à faire leur demande à travers leur fédération. Et il faut savoir que bon nombre de sportifs de haut niveau ont eu la possibilité d'aller s'entraîner pour se préparer pour les Jeux Olympiques, tout comme les boxeurs Claire et Colin. Les handisports qui se préparent pour le Paralympique de 2021, de Tokyo 2021, ont eu l'autorisation et ils s'entraînent. Ils sont véhiculés par des transports mis à leur disposition. Et donc, s'il y a d'autres demandes spécifiques de la part des athlètes de haut niveau, les élites, ils passent par leur fédération et bien sûr, au niveau du ministère, nous allons faire ce qu'il faut. Voilà.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. The matter which I wanted to raise is addressed to the Honourable Prime Minister. I will therefore request his deputy to make mention of this issue to him. I have written a letter now almost 3 weeks to the Honourable Prime Minister, where I have referred in the letter to the right of every member elected in constituency number 3 to travel to Agalega, which forms part of our constituency. I have alerted the Prime Minister to the fact that there are 2 very urgent issues, amongst others, for which the inhabitants have requested not only me, but all members of the constituency to come to Agalega. One is the lack of transparency on the part of government pertaining to the construction going on, whether there's a military base there or not. We are totally in the flu. Our constituents have asked us to be there in order to discuss same with us. The lack of respect in hierarchy shown by the representative of the company called Rights, which is based at the Prime Minister's office in Mauritius for the island manager. And thirdly, the fact that there is a huge problem going on around there pertaining to health issues and many other issues again. So for those reasons, I have requested the Honourable Prime Minister to make arrangements for us to be able to go to Agalega, since it is our constitutional right to represent our constituents. I have not received an answer from the Prime Minister. However, I'm very grateful. I've received an acknowledgement of the letter. At least I've received that. But I would be very grateful if arrangements could be made, because I do not, in conclusion, I do not want to be pushed to go to court and to ask for constitutional redress against government. Otherwise, within 1 week, I'll have to do so.
Mr. Speaker, due to unforeseen reasons, the Prime Minister has had to withdraw from the House before proceedings are over today. The Honourable Member may rest assured that I shall transmit the tenor of his intervention to the Prime Minister.
Honourable Dano.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Ma requête ce soir s'adresse au ministre des Finances et ça concerne les petites et moyennes entreprises concernant le paiement de la VAT. Et il y a pas mal de petites et moyennes qui doivent payer la VAT d'ici vendredi, mais le problème c'est que nous sommes en confinement et ils ne peuvent pas payer parce que le cash office du MRA est fermé à cause du confinement. Je demanderai au ministre s'ils peuvent étendre le paiement de la VAT pour ces entreprises-là.
Monsieur le Président, je remercie l'honorable pour cette question. Je tiens à le rassurer qu'au niveau de la MRA, ils ont déjà pris les dispositions pour que ce paiement soit reporté au 30 juin 2021. Merci.
Mélanger.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Ma requête s'adresse au ministre de l'Environnement. Le projet d'agrandissement de la route à Chamarel, plus précisément la route R104, est en train de massacrer un type de forêt unique avec une végétation indigène des plus denses et regroupant principalement des espèces endémiques en danger d'extinction. Le ministre le sait, il ne nous reste que 4% de nos forêts indigènes et nous sommes en train de détruire le peu qu'il nous reste. Nous parlons là, entre autres, des beignets noirs de plus de 500 ans. Il ne s'agit pas de bétonner pour mieux replanter ailleurs, et je dis bien prétendre, parce que dans le cas actuel, il n'y a aucun projet de réhabilitation. Et ça serait un désastre de sacrifier cette région qui a une grande capacité de régénération, mais surtout, la crise climatique, c'est maintenant, et nous le voyons bien avec les inondations qu'il y a depuis quelques jours. Donc, notre biodiversité aussi est en danger. Cette forêt abrite des cresserelles qui ont été sauvées de l'extinction dans les années 70, et pour toutes ces raisons, qu'il connaît déjà, j'implore le ministre de l'Environnement de bien vouloir faire arrêter ce massacre et de commanditer une étude sur l'impact environnemental de ces travaux. Je dépose également la lettre authentifiée du président de la Royal Society of Arts and Science of Mauritius qui explique la gravité de la situation et qui a d'ailleurs été adressée au ministre de l'Environnement il y a 2 semaines, mais qui est malheureusement resté sans réponse. Merci.
Monsieur le Président, donc je dois dire qu'au niveau du gouvernement, nous sommes très soucieux de la protection de l'environnement. Nous sommes pertinemment conscients des effets néfastes du changement climatique sur nos zones côtières et je peux assurer la Chambre que nous sommes en train de prendre toutes les dispositions nécessaires pour la protection de la faune, de la flore et aussi de la côte mauricienne. Et je dois dire que pour les agrandissements des routes, que ce soit au niveau de la ODIE, que ce soit au niveau de toutes les autorités compétentes, nous sommes en train de prendre des dispositions pour s'assurer, là où cela doit se faire, malheureusement cela se fera, mais bien sûr nous sommes en train de prendre des dispositions pour la replantation d'autres plantes. Mais nous savons pertinemment bien que cela ne remplace pas les arbres centenaires, mais malheureusement il y a des exigences pour le développement. Mais quand même, Monsieur le Président, je dois dire, il ne faut pas être sélectif dans son approche. Il faut se rendre à l'évidence aujourd'hui. Il y a des projets gouvernementaux, il y a aussi des projets du privé. Et les projets du privé, que ce soit les PDS, les IOS, les OIS, et certains membres de la Chambre ne doivent pas être sélectifs dans une approche et de reconnaître aujourd'hui qu'il y a pas mal de plantes. Il y a pas mal de plantes qui ont été coupées par le secteur privé où les membres de l'opposition sont restés insensibles. Monsieur le Président, je dois dire une chose. Au niveau du gouvernement, pour chaque arbre qu'on va couper, on va faire le TikTok, on va faire des vidéos. Cela ne changera rien, Monsieur le Président. Notre préoccupation en ce qui concerne le changement climatique, la protection de l'environnement reste inchangée.
Honorable Béranger, try to control yourself.
Monsieur le Président, ma requête s'adresse au ministre des Utilités publiques. Une demande urgente des habitants de Chemin-Grenier, Suriname, Chamonix, qui, à chaque période de grosses pluies, sont privés d'eau potable dans les robinets, puisque à ce moment, il y émane une eau boueuse. Et cela est une situation récurrente depuis un certain temps. Donc, je demanderai humblement au ministre des Utilités publiques de traiter cette situation en urgence. Merci.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I thank the honourable member for raising this issue, which I am aware of, and I've requested the CWA to submit a report on the situation because we had faced the same situation some weeks ago. I've gone through the report, and true it is that during heavy rainfall, because of the presence of muddy water, it is very difficult to treat the water, and this has got to do with the turbidity of water, that is sediment present in the water. The treatment plant that we have normally is of a capacity to be able to treat the turbidity in the water of an order of 400. I don't know the measurement really, but I understand that with the heavy rainfall that we are having, it has doubled. So we are looking for solutions, but it will be difficult to find solutions because this has happened in the past also. It is difficult to find solutions in the short term, but I promise the honourable member that we will find solutions in the medium term, that in a few months' time we will be able to treat water during heavy rainfall and treat water of higher turbidity. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
MP Antil.
Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président. Ma requête s'adresse au ministre des Administrations régionales. À chaque grosse pluie, il y a une accumulation d'eau pendant plus d'une semaine, rendant le dump path lane à Rivière-Sèche-Floréal impraticable aux piétons et aux automobilistes. Cette situation perdure depuis des années et je sollicite l'intervention du ministre car il est urgent de trouver une solution permanente afin d'éliminer l'eau stagnante et soulager la vie des habitants de la région. Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker.
Order. The Minister.
Mr. Speaker.
Any minister passing on the message?
I'm going to pass on the message to the Municipal Council of Kuopit, sir.
Honourable Utim.
I have a matter which is addressed to the Honourable Deputy Prime Minister, Mr. of Land and Housing. It concerns people in my constituency in Valley Peter, which lives in a flood-prone area where there is the risk of landslide. And this risk has been identified by Japanese experts. I've had the time several times ask PQ in this house because there's no solution. These people have to be relocated, and then Minister of Housing stated that they would be relocated. Today, with the heavy rainfall, again, there is a risk of cracks appearing in the houses, so anytime these houses can collapse. So we don't want to have a repeat of what happened in Labut. So I'm going to urge the Honourable Deputy Prime Minister if you can look into the matter and arrange for the displacement of these inhabitants which are at risk of the landslide. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, sir, if you allow me, I am chairing a committee on this landslide at Chitrakoot, at Valipito. So we are looking into the matter now, and we'll try to find. I know it's been for a long time, but we'll try to find a solution. We are working on it, sir.
MP Amos.
Ma requête ce soir s'adresse au ministre de Local Government. C'est concernant l'état des routes à la résidence 59 Duval à Grande-Rivière. Donc, actuellement, toutes les routes sont endommagées, bourrées de nids de poules à toute longueur de mètre. Donc, je demanderai au ministre, je sais qu'à long terme, il y a le projet de rasphaltage et de drain, mais à court terme, s'il peut envoyer une équipe pour faire du patching, pour pouvoir soulager les usagers de la route. Merci.
Mr. Speaker, I would ask the member to put that through the CSU. We'll look into it.
MP Amphol.
A simple issue. It concerns the Prime Minister as well as the Minister of Civil Service. It concerns 32 SMS officers who have been delegated for duty in Rodrigues. They have been there since the 4th of February, and because of the confinement, they are stuck there. They were supposed to be there for 40 days. It's now nearly 3 months. And we are going forward with partial deconfinement. Can I request the Honourable Minister to kindly do the needful if a fresh batch of SMS officers could be deployed to relieve them? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I thank the Honourable Member for his question. I will look into the matter.
Honourable Nakchadi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. My request today is addressed to the Honourable Minister of Arts and Cultural Heritage, and it concerns the site in the village of Moalasho, where bones of dodo had been found 2 years ago. At the very start, the site has been declared as restricted area and was hoarded. Now we stand, the hoardings have been worn out. I will just request the Minister if he can look at it, if he can re-hoard that site. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I'll ask the Museum Council to look into it and certainly will take on board your request. Thank you.
Honourable Ganga Prasad.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. My request is addressed to the Honourable Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Housing and Land Use Planning and Minister of Tourism. There are a few pleasure craft and fishing boat owners who have drawn my attention regarding the problems they are facing to have access to the beach of Pointe Canonnier. Over the years, bungalow owners, especially those which are found along the beach, have blocked the passages used by these pleasure craft and fishing boat owners by constructing walls. I will provide you more details regarding the exact location of those blocked passages. I'm referring you so that you can use your good office to address this issue. On behalf of the aggrieved parties, I thank you in advance. Mr. Speaker, I shall be very happy to look into it, provided I have precise information concerning the location of the problem just raised. Thank you.
MP Yangamya.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. The issue I'm raising is addressed to the Honourable Prime Minister. It's in relation to a drug issue in Rochebois, Cocoterie region, Alfred Besnau Street. I have raised this issue in the House several times at adjournment time and in PQs. The reason I'm raising this issue again today is that during confinement time there has been an acceleration of drug trafficking in this region. I think the drug dealers there are making the most of it during confinement time. So I will request the Honourable Prime Minister to convey this message to the Commission of Police and that urgent necessary actions are taken. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I will certainly convey the message to the Prime Minister, but I would invite the Honourable Gentleman, if he has more precise information, to communicate it directly to the Prime Minister so we may act effectively.
MP Asseredel.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Ma requête est adressée au ministre des Infrastructures publiques, l'honorable Bobier Iram. Il est absent. Je demanderai au Deputy Prime Minister s'il peut transmettre ma requête au ministre. La requête concerne les habitants du morcellement d'Aulot à Phoenix. Le flyover est en construction et le centre Abdul Rajak Mohamed et la mosquée du centre se trouvent enclavés avec la construction de ce flyover. Les habitants de Daoulot ont écrit au ministre et au Premier ministre. Je demanderai au député Prime Minister de transmettre si le ministre peut avoir avec la ADA une rencontre avec les habitants de Daoulot à Phoenix pour pouvoir voir comment on peut faciliter l'entrée de la région de Daoulot sur le flyover. Merci.
Mr. Speaker, our colleague is absent for obvious reasons given the situation, the climatic conditions. I shall certainly convey the message to him.
MP Nagalingam.
Mr. Speaker, sir, with your kind permission, allowed me to seek information from the Honourable Prime Minister. In fact, the Honourable Prime Minister, some time back in October 2019, mentioned that all police officers of the grade of Caporal were to be automatically promoted to the grade of Sergeant. I received representation from some police complaint. But this is something that I got from...
No, your constituency. Talk about your constituency. Come on, change.
So, or elsewhere as the same has not been implemented yet, will the Honourable Prime Minister inform the House if this will be done and when?
Convey the message, Mr. Speaker.
Thank
you, Mr. Speaker. With your permission, before making my request, I just want to say that the people of India are in our thoughts and prayers, since we know how much they are suffering because of the COVID-19. Having said this, Mr. Speaker, I would like to request the Honourable Minister, in view of this disastrous situation prevailing in India, to extend the quarantine from 14 days to 21 days for all those coming from India, with, of course, special facilities for those not having the financial means to pay for same. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, sir, as far as for India, the virus in India is present. We don't have any studies showing that the incubation period is more than 14 days, but nevertheless, I think this is what has been already been under discussion in the high-level committee, and we are looking into this matter, and obviously, if ever this decision will be taken, we will inform the expatriates coming from India. Mauritians.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My request is addressed to the Minister of Land and Transport. Following representations made to me by inhabitants of Valley Pito, particularly Impasse Alma, starting...
Leader of the opposition, help your colleagues.
Starting from Park Biff to Alma Street, of motorcycles speeding day and night and representing a danger to those public living there since there are no pavements. I request the Honourable Minister to see with the relevant authorities, particularly the Traffic Management Road Safety Unit, if speed breakers or any other alternatives can be put in place to put an end to such traffic difficulties. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir, I have taken good note of the issues raised by the Honourable Member. I will certainly do the needful.
David.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Ma requête s'adresse au ministre des Infrastructures nationales, qui, je le comprends, doit être sur le terrain. Elle concerne les maisons qui se trouvent dans les rues Codan et de Conti, à Port-Louis, en bout de ce qui est connu comme le ruisseau Créole. En ces temps de fortes pluies, l'eau provenant de la montagne des Signaux et de Marie-Reine de la Paix notamment est acheminée dans ce ruisseau et déborde à hauteur de ces 4 ou 5 maisons en bout de ruisseau. Puis-je donc solliciter l'attention du ministre pour que son ministère puisse notamment considérer le rehaussement des murs de rétention en bout de ruisseau pour éviter tout risque d'inondation. Merci.
Point is noted and will be conveyed to the Minister.
No other issues to raise, so the House stands adjourned, and thank you.